הרב meshulam weiss ורעייתו איילין נישאו בשנת 1957. ימים ספורים לפני נישואיהם היו ביחידות אצל הרבי.
So I gave the Rebbe the zettel, and the Rebbe looked at it, read it, and then he looked up, and he said to us, "You read Yiddish?" So I said, "Yeah, I speak Yiddish, I understand Yiddish." And my Kala, she said to the Rebbe, "I understand Yiddish, but I don't speak it that well. I don't express myself that well in Yiddish." So the Rebbe said, "All right, when I speak to the chassan, I'll speak in Yiddish, and when I speak to the Kala, I'll speak in English." And that's what he did. So maybe a few seconds goes by, and all of a sudden, my wife starts to cry. And she looks at the Rebbe, and she says to him, "Can the Rebbe please ask the chassan to leave the room? I want to speak to the Rebbe in private." Well, I was in shock. I think the Rebbe was also in shock. And the Rebbe gave me a look, and I just backed out and walked out of the room. As I came out into the hallway, our grown-up came running over. He says, "Where's the Kala?" I said, "She's still inside." He said, No, you can't do that. We don't do it that way." I said, "Well, that's the way it is. What am I going to do?" And maybe about a good 20 minutes goes by that my wife is inside with the Rebbe talking. And then she finishes, and she opens the door. She says, "The Rebbe said you should come back in." So I come back in, and I forget exactly how we were talking, but we more or less the chiddush was ending at that point. And we started backing to the door, and the Rebbe got up from behind his desk, and he walked us to the door. And the two shayimim were waiting outside. My wife went on her way, and I went my way. And the next time I saw my wife was under the chuppah. And after the chuppah, we, of course, went into the yichud room. And as soon as we went into the yichud room, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "What did you talk to the Rebbe about in there for 20 minutes?" So my wife said, "Well, I hope you're not upset. I told the Rebbe I want to call the wedding off." This was, remember, Thursday night. We're getting married Sunday. And the Rebbe said, "Why do you want to call off the wedding?" So I said to the Rebbe, "Because I have a terrible temper. I have no patience, and I lose my temper very easily. And until now, there's something, a chassan kala, he doesn't see everything because, but once we're married, it won't take long. He's going to realize he made a big mistake. He married a wrong woman, or he married a shrew, and we'll probably end up in divorce. So I've been thinking about it," she said, "and I decided I would rather not get married at all than get married and get divorced." So I said, "So what did the Rebbe say?" She said, "The Rebbe smiled. And the Rebbe said to me, in English, the Rebbe said to me, 'I'm going to tell you something. The Rebbe is going to bless you with many children. And the children will teach you patience. So there's no reason for you to call off the wedding. And until you start having the children, you should do volunteer work in a hospital, preferably with children in the hospital. And that will also help you become patient with people. And your temper will not be a problem.'" There's an amazing P.S. to this bracha that the Rebbe gave my wife. I'll tell you right now. We came back to Miami Beach, and we were there about 6 months. And my 18-year-old Beis Yaakov wife started to become very concerned that she hadn't become pregnant in those 6 months. So she tells me one day, she says, "I want to be examined by a doctor, by a gynecologist." So we asked around, and they gave us the name of one of the leading gynecologists in Miami. And my wife went in for an examination. And after examination, we're sitting in his office. And he looks at us and he says, "Well, I have very disturbing news to give you. He says to my wife, you have a condition that's called an infantile womb, which basically means that your womb never developed. And therefore, it is physically impossible for you to become pregnant, and you're going to be sterile for the rest of your life. So get used to it. My wife went out of there. She was absolutely devastated. So I said to my wife, well, you know, this guy's not the only doctor in town. Let's get a second opinion. So I asked around. I got the name of another gynecologist. And we went to visit him. And at the end of the examination, he said the exact same thing. He said to my wife, it's true, you have an infantile womb. He said, but there's nothing that could be done about it. And that was it. We went home. I called up New York, spoke to Rabbi Groner, told him what the doctor said to report it to the Rebbe, and didn't get any answer, just asked for a bracha. And a month later, my wife became pregnant with our oldest son, Mordechai. The second gynecologist that we went to, he delivered my wife. In fact, he delivered all of our, I don't know if you know, we have 15 children, Kanai Nahara. He delivered all of our 15 children. So my wife at that time was 18 years old. Now we have to move the clock ahead, speed it up, and we get to where my wife is in her 40s. That point in her life when, you know, they have the changes, what they call a change of life. And she needed to be examined by doctors. So she went to our primary doctor. And he suggested, and he gave her the name of, made an appointment for her to see a gynecologist. After examination, he says to my wife, you must be very disappointed, aren't you? And my wife says, disappointed? Why? He says, well, aren't you an Orthodox Jewish woman? And my wife says, yes. He says, well, I know among the Orthodox Jews, it's very important for them to have children. And I can see by examining you that you have an infantile womb, which tells me that you never had any children. It must be very disappointing in you to be married all these years and not to have had any kids. So my wife didn't say anything to the guy. She said, okay. She went home. I was waiting outside. And she comes out, and she's laughing. I said, what's going on? She tells me, we had a good laugh. So how do you explain that? The answer is very simple. The Rebbe gave you a bracha 2 days before your chasana, that the Rebbe is going to bless you with many children. So that's why you have your children, because of the Rebbe's bracha.